Call this meeting to order at 7:36 p.m. Please be aware that this meeting may be filmed and or audio recorded and that this meeting's minutes will be made available to the public.
Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you all to this joint meeting of the Gainesville City Commission, along with, of course, the University of Florida Student Senate. We are pleased to be here with you this evening. Thank you for the invitation. This is a joint meeting of both bodies. We try to do this at least once a year. We missed a couple times during COVID, but I'm real pleased that we're able to do it again. This is not my first one of these, but it is my first opportunity to preside as mayor. I was elected in January of this year, as were the three commissioners who are with us today. Commissioner Brian Eastman, who represents District 4, which includes the University of Florida. Commissioner Ed Book, which represents mostly Northwest Gainesville and District 2. And Commissioner Casey Willits, who represents District 3, which probably is a lot of you as well in Southwest Gainesville. Sure. I'll start over if you'd like. I also wanted to briefly introduce some of our charter officers who are here with us this evening. Just to give you a little background, the city of Gainesville employs a little over 2,000 people. There are 6 charter officers who report directly to the Gainesville City Commission, and all the rest of those folks who work at the city of Gainesville report to those charter officers. Here with us this evening, we have our city manager, Cynthia Curry. We have our city attorney, Dan Nee, our general manager of the utilities, Tony Cunningham, our city clerk, Kristen Bryant, and our director of equity and inclusion, Zariah Folston. I don't think our auditor is here with us this evening. But so there you go. That's our call to order for the evening. We'll go through some more formalities, and I will ask for our folks to adopt the agenda.
Thank you. Will Senator, who wants to lead the pledge for tonight? Senator Raffanon will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I will read a short land acknowledgement at this time. We, the University of Florida student government, recognize that our campus is located on the ancestral and traditional territory of the Seminole Tribe of Florida and Timucua Tribe. We recognize that the historic displacement and violence against indigenous people has led to severe plights for indigenous individuals throughout our American history. Despite these circumstances, the indigenous communities across this nation have continued to stay connected and nurturing of this territory and their cultural ways of life. We pay our respects to these indigenous elders and descendants of the past and present, especially those who have called the University of Florida home within their lifetime. We shall commit ourselves to supporting indigenous sovereignty and culture within and beyond the University of Florida. And now for a moment of silence. All right, thank you. City Commission roll call.
So at this time, I would ask for a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the City Commission agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Madam Clerk, we have an agenda.
All right, thank you. And now, will a member of the Rules and Ethics Committee please come down and conduct a roll?
I hope we have it.
Ali. Ali. Ana Alvarez.
Here.
Here. Santiago Alvarez.
Here.
Here. Amster.
Here.
Here. Antonik.
Here.
Here. Rothanon.
Here.
Here. Assumption. Assumption. Fader. Fader. Bannock.
Present.
Here. Barakovsky. Barakovsky. Budai.
Here.
Here. Cox.
Here.
Here. Zamora.
Here.
Here. Gongano.
Here.
Here. Gozali. Gozali. Giordano.
Here.
Here. Hazlett.
Here.
Here. Holmes. Holmes. Howard. Howard. Huber. Here. Imbrugata. Imbrugata. Islam.
Here.
Here. John.
Here.
Here. Kelly. Kelly. Caduce. Here. Kingard.
Here.
Here. Lash.
Here.
Here. Leckabush. Leckabush. Liang.
Here.
Here. Liebert. Liebert. Lynn.
Here.
Here. Lou. Lou. Lacostia. Lacostia. Lizardo. Lizardo. Marcelino.
Here.
Here. Matthews.
Here.
Here. Mia. Mia. McGinnis.
Here.
Here. Mirtha. Mirtha. Mize. Mize. Naidu.
Here.
Here. Nair.
Here.
Here. Nagarajan.
Here.
Here. Panish. Panish. Patel. Patel. Helton.
Here.
Patrick.
Senate President.
Ed, please, what's your...
Just clarifying, it's Connor Panish said here.
Yes.
but
Yeah.
the,
It's not reflected on
Oh,
the
is it
poll.
on? Sorry. Thank you. Patrick.
Here.
Here. Panine.
Here.
Here. Platovsky.
Here.
Here. Ponce.
Here.
Here. Rappaport.
Here.
Here. Brassel. Here. Reich.
Here.
Here. Roberts.
Here.
Here. Robson.
Here.
Here. Ruedas.
Here.
Here. Russo.
Here.
Here. Santiago Perez. Oh. Scanlon.
Here.
Here. Cipher.
Here.
Here. Symes. Symes. Solomon.
Here.
Here. Stevens.
Here.
Here. Thomas.
Here.
Here. Vijay Raghavan.
Here.
Here. Vigna.
Here.
Here. Wang.
Here.
Here. Whitaker.
Here.
Here. White. Here. Wilson.
Here.
Here. Woodbury.
Here.
Here. There are 53 senators present.
all right, with 53 senators present, quorum is established. All right. All right. We're now in line for the community forum, and I will allow the city commission to begin.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
There we go. Thank you. So we have, our order is a little bit different on here, and if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and go with transportation and traffic safety first, which gives me an opportunity to introduce our chief of police, Lonnie Scott, and our traffic director, Jesus Gomez, I forget what his title
Director of
is.
Transportation.
Director of Transportation, pardon me. This is why he works for the city manager and not directly for me. But they are here to answer questions that you may have as a student senate about transportation and about traffic safety and how we at City of Gainesville try to keep you safe on our streets and also offer opportunities to move around as you are able. So do you all, how would you like to, do you have questions that folks are interested in, or we don't really have anything to offer directly. We're here to be a resource to you, unless commissioners would like to speak directly to those items.
If any commissioners have any updates as to these topics or any developments, feel free to deliver those, and then afterwards we can open up for a question and answer period.
Great. So I will tell you that everyone here, all the commissioners who are able to be with us this evening, traffic safety is absolutely a priority for our commission. We've all spoken quite a bit about that. We've declared a traffic violence crisis earlier in the year. We are consistently concerned about people staying alive on the streets of Gainesville, particularly pedestrians and cyclists. This is a multi-year approach for us to get to an international standard Vision Zero. And while we do better than most communities, we are in a state that is the most dangerous place to be a pedestrian or a cyclist, and we are very well aware of that. So I'd ask any of the commissioners if you wanted to speak on that. This would be a great opportunity. It's okay if you don't want to, but I know this is a thing that you all care about. Pass you the mic if you like.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Brian Eastman. I'm, as the mayor mentioned, the commissioner for City Commission District 4, which includes this area. So we're doing a number of things. You might have noticed a lot of changes on University Avenue right in front of here. I might ask Jesus to speak more in depth as to what exactly those changes are. But one of the things that, I don't know how long you all have been here, but the University Avenue has changed over the years, as well as the amount of density that we've had over there. So I'd say about 10 years ago, we had a lot of student apartments that were being built on the southwest side of town. I'd say about 20 years ago, we started to say what we want is for students to be able to live near the University of Florida campus. We don't need cars coming in. We don't need to be expending all this to get people across town. People should be able to live closer to the university, which is that zoning changed about 20 years ago, and that's happened. And now there's a lot of new apartments that are going in there, and a lot of people that are coming across, which is causing a lot of pedestrian deaths, a lot of traffic issues that are there. And so we're now working on shrinking the lanes there, adding in some lights that would just try to really slow traffic down there and really make that more of a pedestrian walkway area. And I know that's, as the mayor mentioned, that is a priority for all of us on the Gainesville City Commission, both in terms of making sure that everyone is safe, but just making sure that we are continuing to grow the University of Florida closer to the campus so that you guys have a great experience as you're coming in, and that your life can be within kind of a central corridor that's here with a good walkable area. And I'm happy to answer any questions about some of the details of that. I know a lot of you guys deal with that every single day, but it's one of the major projects that we're working on. We have, I believe, an $8 million grant to begin. $1 million. What's that? $8.1 million. Thank you, Commissioner. $8.1 million grant to continue to move forward on that, and that is one of the larger projects, both for our commission and really in terms of the whole history of the city of Gainesville. That has been the main corridor of our city, and so we're very excited about the corridor.
Casey Willis, District 3 Commissioner in Southwest Gainesville. The University Avenue project is very exciting, but it really only could happen because of some big dollars that were not generated right here in the city of Gainesville. But here in the city of Gainesville and Alachua County, we do generate dollars that we are committed to spending to keep people safe. Last fall, the voters approved our half-cent surtax, which we're now calling street stations and strong foundations. And some of that is about streets. And we're committed in Gainesville to making sure that when we rebuild streets or new streets, that they take into account pedestrians and cyclists. And so that any way you're moving around the city, you have an opportunity to do that. Just this weekend, another pedestrian was killed in District 3 in Southwest Gainesville in Butler Plaza. And this wasn't it's hard to argue that this is someone who wasn't where they were supposed to be because it's a parking lot. And what we know about parking lots is people walk in parking lots because the car is there, you're gonna get somewhere else. And so this is just another example. When we declared a crisis about traffic violence, since then, we've had several more deaths, pedestrians and cyclists. And it weighs on, I know it weighs on probably all of us, and it weighs on me because for a year I cycled to UF, and then for 3 years I took the bus to UF to work. So I'm a pedestrian around town, around Gainesville. Not just University Avenue, we are working on 8th Avenue, Northwest 8th Avenue, to make that better and friendlier to pedestrians and to cyclists. We have also committed to looking at a master plan for greenways, which to a large degree that is also how people will walk or ride or scoot or all these other things around our city. That's a process that I think we have a lot of potential, but it's going to take the priority of our whole city and this commission to actually spend dollars on it and to make some difficult decisions, because people who invest 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, $100,000 into a vehicle kind of want to be able to drive anywhere. But this city is not just a throughway for people to get from outside of the city through the city at 45 or 55 miles an hour. The humans that live inside the city or go to school and work also deserve to be safe, crossing a street, cycling along the street, on the sidewalk, crossing at sidewalks, at stoplights, and other intersections. So there's a bit of a tension, but in the end, our goal is 0 deaths, 0 pedestrian deaths. And to get there, we're gonna have to make some difficult decisions. So we hope you're along for the ride.
So good evening, my name is Ed Book. I'm in District 2. I represent District 2, which is largely west and northwest Gainesville. And very briefly, I think Commissioner Eastman and Commissioner Willits covered quite a bit of what we're doing as it relates to making our traffic ways, our roadways multimodal. Right? That's cars, bikes, pedestrians, even microtransit, like scooters, and so that's very important. And what you'll see, an actual example of that is right around the universities. You go across 13th Street, 34th Street, University Avenue, and in your southwest, just east of the university, those roadways where we have a lot of infill, a lot of big apartment complexes are going up, and you probably see that construction. You'll see traffic ways that have pedestrian walkways. You'll see extreme amounts of lighting for areas where microtransit and scooters will travel, and you'll see bikeways. I know Commissioner Eastman rode his bicycle right here, and so he understands how important it is to be able to get somewhere, whether you have a car, you're in public transit, like our director has, or any other mechanism. All the areas where you see infill and development around the university, you're going to see areas that also allow you to travel in many different ways to get to your destination at the University of Florida. So I think that's it for us, Mr. Mayor. Please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're open to take questions, and again, we have the Chief of Police and our Director of Transportation, including RTS, here with us this evening. So, starting here.
So, as a body, we passed a couple of resolutions advocating for crosswalks in different parts of Gainesville. So, how would we navigate that with the city of Gainesville, or how is the city of Gainesville going to work with that?
So those are actually in our backup. So there are public information now through our system as well as your system. Andrew Persons, who works for the city manager, can tell you a little bit about how we relate to that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd just like to comment the project that we talked about a little bit earlier for 8.2. It's actually a $10 million project, $2 million from the city and $8 from LFO.
Thank you.
Andrew?
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to address the specific resolution about Southwest 35th Place, which we did task our transportation staff to look at the resolution that the Senate passed and to bring back some feedback. So I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about it.
So the city recognizes the safety needs associated with this area, particularly along this corridor. We have taken incremental steps over the years to improve safety in the area, including expanding the sidewalk and trail network, adding a roundabout at the intersection of Southwest 35th Place and Southwest 23rd Street, Southwest 23rd Terrace, improving signage at the roundabout, adding a traffic separator along Southwest 35th Place near 34th Street, and enhancing bus stop accessibility. Additional measures identified for implementation along both corridors over the next several years as funds become available. The proposed modifications, I think these were in the Senate resolution, include the completion of the sidewalk network along the north side of Southwest 35th Place, and identification and implementation of crossing points, and installation of bus stop improvements and crossings along Southwest 23rd Street, at the vicinity of University Club, and at the vicinity of Southwest 31st Place. The proposed addition of mid-block crossings with pedestrian activated push button is expected to cost a little over $100,000 and would be limited to locations where there are continuous sidewalks along both sides of the road, which is a challenge. The sidewalk work along Southwest 35th Place is expected to cost over $500,000, which would include design and construction costs, and currently both projects are unfunded. So we identified the need for the improvements, but we currently don't have funding for those projects, but they are on the city's list of transportation improvements in the area. So as we continue to expand mid-block crossings with pedestrian activated push buttons, we also have to consider about long-term operation maintenance costs, which I know as residents in our community, at school, you guys don't necessarily think about the sort of long-term maintenance, but that's certainly something that gets factored into any decision-making that the city does. But that, I think, addresses that Senate resolution.
Mr. Mayor, if I might respond, and for any other resolutions or requests for updates on services, if you send them to the city commission, the clerk will make sure that they are transmitted to my office, and whatever department is needed to respond will respond.
Thank you, Madam Manager. More questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Hi, my name is Sophia. I really recognize and I'm grateful for the city's action and awareness on what the people need. And I know not a lot of cities are this responsive or available, so I really appreciate that. But I was just wondering, on a personal level, I live by the DNA bridge, and I bike everywhere, and on my bike to class, there's a large stretch by like Norman Yulee area. I'm sure you're aware of. It's just one sidewalk on one side of the street. There's no bike lanes. It gets really congested, and it gets really unsafe. And there's a lot of crosswalk areas where people will like be on a bird scooter, and then they're done with it, and they lay it down like right where you would be going up like on a bike to cross. So you have to like get off in the middle of the crosswalk, move your bike around it, get back on. So I was just wondering, I understand that'd be like a big project because of the way that the roads are built and how clogged 13th Street gets with traffic, and that we have structures right next to it, but it's just really unsafe, especially during class times, because it's like people are biking on the grass median between the sidewalk and the road. People are like going around each other. People are dodging out of the way really quickly, and it gets there's just a lot of pedestrian traffic there. So I was just wondering, like, to what extent the city is aware of that, and also to what extent they can be active.
So thank you. That is particularly that stretch always drives me crazy. The idea that we have this, what should be, what is one of the most dense pedestrian areas in North Florida, and what should be designed that way, but Florida Department of Transportation, which is responsible for 13th Street, 441, did not think that way about it. The last time they did a big redesign, the idea was, well, people drive on 441. It's a U.S. highway. That's what people do here. But we have this long stretch, or several block stretch, where lots and lots of people live, where there's no sidewalk. That seems absurd to me, and always has. I do a lot of walking in Gainesville. I try to park and do. I don't cycle, but I do walk a lot. So I'm very familiar with that stretch particularly. we are in the process, as we study University Avenue specifically, the next thing that we're looking to do, hopefully with support from the University of Florida, is rethinking 13th Street, particularly in the campus area. So really from Southwest 16th north to Northwest 8th, and potentially a little farther than that, because that's where people obviously walk. Those are very heavy pedestrian cyclist areas. So yes, that is very much on our radar to make it more friendly to cycling and walking. We do a good job east-west, not as good a job north-south in that particular area. Oh, back here, and then I'll come back around this way.
So I live in like the
So I'm a really old dude, and I don't hear you very well. Sorry.
So I live in like the University Heights area, and I know a lot of people in like the College Park area, like right off the Northwest campus, have this concern. But increasingly over the years, I'm a senior. There have just been a lot of incidents that have happened in that area, and I know that it is a heavy populated area with women. So do you have any plans to increase safety? You know that there's been a lot of work on pedestrian safety, especially on 8th Ave, which I really thank you all for that. I was here when we had that meeting a little while ago, a couple of years ago, and we got that implemented. So I know that these conversations do come with like potential impacts. But do you have any like things on your radar that you're trying to do to increase safety in that area, whether it's like more officers in the area or better lighting, or if that's on your radar at all?
So kind of, you're talking about not so much traffic safety and pedestrian safety as just general evening safety.
Yeah, general evening safety or even safety during the day. There have just been incidents with, for instance, like either break-ins or people feeling unsafe with people on their street, or also like public indecency in the areas. I know that it is an area heavily populated by women, because I know sorority grows in that area as well, and a lot of people live in that area as well. So there have been incidents in the past, and I've had incidents happen with my friends. So has there been anything like kind of to improve that, or is there anything coming up that we should be relaying to our constituents?
So I'm going to ask someone from GPD to come generally address that for us.
I'll be Vanna tonight.
I'm Lonnie Scott, Chief of Police Department, and that area in particular has grown a lot over the last couple of years. We had discussions about that area this morning. We had an incident that drew some concern to us, and there was a news release put out about it today, referencing someone that woke up and broke into their home. It's extremely important, no matter where you live, to be diligent about locking your doors. And that's probably the most common mistake that's made. People failing to lock their doors and their windows and paying attention to your surroundings. I've done crime watches in different neighborhoods before and walked the neighborhoods with the folks to show them how easy it is to conceal myself and for them to put themselves at exposure. We'd be more than happy to have either myself or one of the captains come out and walk through the neighborhood with you and see if we have what we call SEP-10, which is, crime prevention through environmental design. It looks at things like lighting. It looks at the locks of your doors and your windows, and gives you some idea of how to improve your safety. There's nothing wrong with asking officers to come through the neighborhood and increase patrols. And if you'd like to meet the officer, call and ask an officer to stop by just to introduce themselves. But if you have concerns about your safety, you have to communicate with us. If you don't, then we have no idea that there's an issue. And you see little things, they have this old saying, see something, say something. You see things going on, if it makes you feel a little awkward, call. Let us know about it. Put us in the loop so that we can keep an eye on it. A lot of us are parents, some grandparents, and we take your safety as a critical item for us. The parents entrust you to us. So we need you to communicate with us, to be good communicators, to let us know what's going on and how you're feeling. If you're not feeling safe in the neighborhood, then get with us to tell us why. Because if you don't, I mean, there's 146,000 people in the city. And if you don't communicate with us, we need your eyes, your ears, and your mouth. We need you to tell us what's going on. We're also putting out in different areas now, because some of the gun violence does not happen in this area, but elsewhere in the city, other places in the city, we are putting out officers that some are in unmarked vehicles. You might notice an increase in the number of traffic stops. The lights are coming on because we're trying to really interject ourselves into these situations where people want to get out and start to confront one another with weapons. That takes us through some of the neighborhoods that you're talking about, but not often. So unless you call, we won't be in those neighborhoods as heavily as we are from other neighborhoods. But if we have a particular problem, you know, and again, the person that committed this crime sounds like they could possibly be a student or a student age. Okay, so that is something to be aware of. So don't take it that a person has to look a certain way or, you know, wear a certain type of clothing. Apparently this person may have been wearing a dry-fit shirt and polo shirt and look like it could be your age. So pay attention to your surroundings, the people in your neighborhoods who don't look like they normally are there, or if they are normally there, are they particularly staring at you? You know, just be careful with your surroundings. And don't feel like calling us is a burden. That's what we get paid for. Okay, so call us anytime you're concerned.
Thank you, Chief. So I would also say, and I'll get to you and then write down this way. If you would, if you don't already have this on your phone, download My GNV app. My GNV. You can report all sorts of things, whether it's a pothole or a security issue or anything like that. You can put it right in there, and it gets routed to the correct department immediately. It's a very efficient system. Saves you a phone call. You can do it in a matter of seconds. Just report whatever, a down tree or anything like that. So, yeah.
My question is in regards to the city commission and your relationship to RTS. I guess there have been some changes made to RTS in terms of like technical improvements on the buses, but we don't have buses to take students and regular Gainesville residents to and from places, and then we're adding huge TVs to our buses, and so it feels like our funds are being misallocated sometimes, or just not being spent where they should be. And you talk about how we are trying to prioritize pedestrians, or I guess make room for pedestrians on roads, but why not start with something that already has facilities such as our buses? And so I'd like to understand how funding for RTS is allocated, and I guess the overall process and what City Commission can do to influence that, and what people can do to also aid in influencing that. Because RTS, I feel, has been gaining ridership since COVID. Obviously, we took a big hit during COVID, but students want buses and they need buses to get to and from campus, because not all of us can quite frankly afford to live within a walkable area of campus. And so I guess, yeah, what is your relation to RTS?
So RTS is part of the city of Gainesville. It's something that is part of our annual budget, which by the way we'll be having our final vote on our annual budget this Thursday evening at City Hall. So you are talking to the right people. We are the folks who make those decisions. We have seen that there was a big decrease in ridership, obviously, following COVID. There's also a decrease in ridership related to the fact that Commissioner Eastman mentioned earlier, more students living near campus. We had a lot more routes when students didn't necessarily live in walking distance from campus. So that is impacting ridership, which impacts the number of routes that we offer. You will probably not find anywhere in Gainesville people who are more committed and excited about RTS than some of the folks here from the city, including me. We love RTS, but a route is expensive, and we try to very carefully assign routes each year and fund routes each year that get ridership. We did cut some earlier based on low ridership. I would love to offer routes no matter what, but we are simply not in a fiscal position to be able to do that. We do get, this is an award-winning transit system for a city this size. Is it perfect? No, not even close. There's a lot more we could do. Improving the buses themselves is one of the least expensive things we do. The big expense for any transit system is the driver, is the labor, which is the case anywhere. It is really hard to get drivers these days. We lose a lot of drivers, as does every transit system, to things like Amazon delivery and that sort of thing. We are always hiring drivers, just saying. It's a good job. It comes with benefits and pension. It's a very, very good thing. But you will not find a transit system in America that is fully staffed, which also creates problems with our ability to provide the routes that we would like to. So I hope that answers your question. But please come to a commission meeting. We have an RTS advisory board that's made up of local citizens, local residents. We have, I think, positions on that for specifically for students. But you don't have to go for one of those positions. You can apply for one of the regular positions as well and have direct input to how our routes are set up and everything else about transit system. Thank you for that. And down here we have one, and I think 3 in a row, right? 1, 2, 3. You're on our human rights advisory board, right?
Yep, I'm vice chair. I'll pass because that question, you answered my question, so thank you.
So just going back to Southwest 35th Place, in regard to just lighting over there, whenever I drive down there, it's not just students, but like a lot of elderly people just like riding the scooters, even just like their little because a lot of them can't, walk and are riding the scooters down the street, not even like on a sidewalk or anything, but rather like on the street itself. So like, is the city aware of this and like have any plans to like implementing more like safety like lights and just being more aware of like how to like navigate that? Because like sometimes when I drive, I can barely see them, and I almost just like it's sort of dangerous for them there too.
So a couple things about that. First, we are working to add more lights to the whole city. It's a very expensive thing to do. It involves lots and lots of not only capital expenses, but ongoing expenses to keep them up and maintained. I will tell you that scooters are, the state of Florida classifies scooters as bicycles, which gives them scooters every right to use the roadway itself, and people certainly take advantage of using scooters all over the place. I will say it's not quite the scooter apocalypse that a lot of people predicted in Gainesville. Most people use them very responsibly, and it's become an interesting micro-transit sort of opportunity. Commissioner Willis, did you have some to add?
So Southwest 35th Place is right like in the heart of my district. And when I was knocking on doors and talking to voters last summer and last fall, it's something I specifically talked about. It's an example where in our city our network is not completely tied in. On the north side versus the south side, there's disconnected sidewalk. Nowadays, if someone was building an apartment complex, that sidewalk would get built. But this is years and years in the past. If you don't know that area didn't always used to be inside the city of Gainesville. It was actually county developed, but it was in the county and then it became part of the city. So that's an area where we have to go back in and fix it. And I know my priority, one of the things at this time, next 6 months or so, as we get done with the big battles about a budget and fighting the state legislature and about lots of different issues, is going back and looking at all those little things that are about priority setting, agenda setting for the next year. And that's an area that I'm particularly interested in because it's an area I knew. I had friends who lived there. I've walked there. I've cycled there. I have ideas. My dreams include a roundabout at 27th and wonderful crosswalks there. But the thing that really sunk home with me, and I talked about this with people in public works and with Mr. Persons, is that the one example I saw, and I know you've seen it, is someone getting off a bus loaded with groceries. Right, we all try to carry way too many groceries, and needing to cross the street, because that's how a bus system works. On the way in, you might be on your side of the street. On the way back, you have to cross the street. And there are thousands of people who live on Southwest 35th Place. Thousands. It's a very busy place. Arguably one of the, also, just like around campus, a very dense pedestrian area. And so that's something that I set out last year when I ran, and then I'm going to keep on being the squeaky wheel. But I will tell you, y'all can provide so much louder squeak than just me alone. Come and bother city commission, flood those emails, come to a meeting, be there for public comment, particularly when these things come up or when there's even a discussion. Be the squeaky wheel so that the squeakiest wheels we hear aren't about motorcycle noise, which I hate, but that is lower in my priority than making sure that people can ambulate or scoot or ride safely in the city. So keep on bringing this up, and I know that in the next 6 months or so, I'm going to be looking through the city. Those little things, they're individual pieces, not big budget, but those individual pieces. But please be the squeaky wheel. Communicate to all your commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Wills. And toward that end, I'll get you all to say here. First and third Thursdays at City Hall. First and third Thursdays, City Hall. We start at 10 a.m. and we, with a couple of breaks in there, we go through about the middle of the evening every first and third Thursday. We have lots of other meetings too, but those are our regular business meetings. Would love to have you all be down and be a part of that. Yes, sir.
Follow-up question. What time on first and third Thursdays?
10 a.m.
10 a.m.
So 10 a.m. is our morning session, tends to be a little bit more relaxed. We break for lunch at noon, and at 1 o'clock we get back at it, and we have our public comment, general public comment opportunity then, and work through about 4:30 where we try to take a dinner break and come back at 6:30 until we're done.
And without overstepping on the mission of Gainesville to be a more walkable campus, a more walkable city itself, are there any plans possibly to supplement the issues that students have with on-campus parking / off-campus parking with those neighborhood parking permits? I know that there are some that exist near the Infinity Hall area, but those are just a few on the side of the road, and I think that students would particularly benefit from that supplement itself, as we have tried working with TAPS to have more parking spaces on campus. Maybe having that extra assistance from the City Commission would possibly be beneficial. If that's something I know about.
So my guess is that there will be fewer on-campus parking spaces as time goes forward. Although that's a guess, I don't have anything to do with it, not my problem. We don't do parking on campus, but we do regulate, of course, neighborhood parking off campus. Will there be more? I'm not sure. I think there's a call for the need for private parking garages closer to campus. I think that's an opportunity. I'm not a big market guy, but I think that the market probably is likely to try to meet those needs. It's a lot easier to make that happen than it is to try to create more on-street parking spaces. Although the more people live near campus, the more need there is, not only for on-campus, but also on-campus parking. Madam Manager, is there anything that any of your staff should add to that? I'm certainly not an expert on that, but we do meet on that fairly regularly and have conversations about it, because it's an issue for anyone who Yes.
Can you explain a bit more how the City Commission gave public comment? Like, what's the process to be able to give public comment to the City Commission?
Sure. Our general public comment is at the 1 o'clock session, early in the 1 o'clock session, and it is 3 minutes, timed for 3 minutes. We ask you when you come in the room, we have a form to sign up with, very low barrier sort of system. We prefer to know your name, just so we know who's there and how we might follow up, but we don't even insist on that. And you can talk about anything you want that's not on the agenda, but every item that we take up, there's an opportunity for public comment for that as well. If you want to just talk about the weather, talk about anything you want that isn't on the agenda, that 1 o'clock session early in the afternoon is your opportunity to treat it like public access cable. People do, yes, sir.
Okay, so this is going back to the earlier discussion about making like the roads more pedestrian friendly. I know for a fact that, as you mentioned, that Southwest 13th is managed by FDOT because it's like US 441 or whatever. Isn't that also a similar case for University Avenue and 34th as well? Just aren't they both, I think, state roads as well? So what's that dynamic look like between the city of Gainesville trying to get something done and working with FDOT? Because obviously that's like a huge disconnect.
It looks much better than it used to, I'm glad to say. We are working really well with FDOT, particularly on University Avenue. There's a 4.1 mile stretch of University Avenue from almost out to the city limits in the east to the President's House, where we do have this federal grant to study how to make it better. And FDOT has been really useful and helpful in that, and what you're seeing in front of the campus is entirely funded by FDOT, which is great. We've been begging for 20 years for some of that. We're pretty good at the city of Gainesville with our city streets at making complete streets. I would urge you, if you haven't been there, head down to Depot Park. South Main Street from Depot Park south to 16th Avenue is an excellent example of a complete street. Not perfect, but it's pretty darn good. It shows you what we can do at the city of Gainesville when we have the opportunity. Most of our big arteries, traffic arteries in Gainesville, are state roads, US highways, or county roads. 34th Street, obviously, nobody ever gave a lot of thought to that as a pedestrian or cyclist roadway. That is meant to be for cars and trucks. I think there's a better way to do that, but that is not the number one priority. The biggest priority as far as arteries that aren't the city of Gainesville are certainly University Avenue and then 13th Street are where we're trying to really make an impact. And the Federal Department of Transportation likes what we do here, and Secretary Buttigieg, when he talks about complete streets, those are the things that we're already doing in Gainesville. So we're well positioned to be able to take advantage of those federal grants that are flowing pretty well, and that's what's happening with University. 13th would be our next focus for one of those highways that we don't control, but FDOT has been good about helping out with those. And one of these days, we'll have a good conversation about 34th Street.
Okay, and then follow up. This is a slightly different part of the conversation, but I know that Gainesville's slowly been making a lot more of the right turns, like turn on green only. Are there plans to expand that? Because I know that's like a pretty big like source of like pedestrian accidents. For example, my friend got hit towards downtown by a truck because they turned on a red light while she was crossing. So are there plans to like make more streets like turn on green only, if that makes sense?
So if it were entirely up to me, you would see that pretty much all over Gainesville. But it is not up to me. So I would also slow traffic down a lot across the city if it were entirely up to me. I want streets where pedestrians are in a lot less danger. Those are ways that we make pedestrians in less danger, cyclists in less danger. We've been able to just get some of that done without making a really big deal out of it. And I hope to see more of that. Commissioner Book?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because we're always studying what's the safety factors at various different intersections, and we have a traffic engineer. And so in our Public Works and Traffic Engineering section, they study statistics, pedestrian crossing, how long you have to crosswalk that's going to be safe for cars. So if anybody in here knows of any particular intersection that is particularly hazardous, particularly dangerous, we need to know, because they can actually study that through our traffic cameras and determine, do we need to change the patterns of that? And those adjustments are made frequently. They're typically so minor that people may not know. We may extend a pedestrian crosswalk for 2 or 3 seconds because we recognize people are not getting across. Or where it's at, there may be older folks who are taking a little longer to get there. So they look at all kind of factors. So if you know like the particular intersection you're talking about, you know that there's some dangerous areas, we need to know that. That'll go straight to traffic engineering, and they study data and make some real good determinations about how to make those intersections safe.
Quick follow-up. I'm also like a statistics major, so that's all really interesting to me. Is that
what major?
Statistics.
Okay.
Is that part of the public Gainesville data set, or is there like a private portion of this data set?
So I'll probably turn that over to our Madam Manager, but we have Thrive GNV, which is a dashboard that you can go on, Thrive GNV, and get quite a bit of data. Is there something you would want to add to that?
I'd have to turn it over to the Director of Transportation.
They've got
Who
a
is that?
commissioner of your GPD.
Who is that?
Oh, okay.
We're gonna test it out.
There you go, Sarge. You want to pass that over? It's an excellent question.
Hi there.
We like to talk about this kind of thing a lot at Gresham.
Sergeant Valdez. I run our traffic safety team at the Gainesville Police Department. So there's a couple of things I wanted to mention. The complaints that the mayor was kind of talking about. Not only can you bring them to the city commission, Gainesville, GPD, we all are part of Vision Zero, which is the city project, and monthly we meet at a county traffic safety team. It's a Zoom meeting that's held, that's basically open to anybody, guests, and there are always affiliates from City of Gainesville, Alachua, DOT, everybody, and basically it is the opportunity to talk about some of these complaints, and often the engineers are actually in attendance, and it gets written down, and there's actual follow-up, and then by the next month, there's at least a feedback for it. And in regards to the stats, we use a program that is available on the internet. It's called Signal 4 Analytics. You can kind of get rough estimates of the actual statistics here in Gainesville. If you get a user account, you get a little bit more info, but the only hiccup with it is the idea that the new House Senate bill came with the traffic crashes that basically said they're not allowed to give out anybody's information in a crash for the first 60 days. So the stats are 60 days old, if that kind of makes sense, to be able to look into. That kind of address?
Yes, thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, Sergeant. So let's do one more, since somebody hasn't gone on transportation, and we do have a couple more items to get to. Anybody over here in the corner, yeah? And then Commissioner Eastman.
Yeah, I guess I was just wondering, so I'm thinking here, because at my college, I'm a graduate student here under design, construction, and planning. And we have architecture, we have landscape architecture. We have a whole group of graduate students that are dedicated to urban and regional planning that are thirsty for research ideas. It seems to me like there's an opportunity here for UF and City of Gainesville to somehow partner through graduate research. I'm sure if you go knocking on dean's doors over there, you'll find people saying, hey, yeah, I've got students who, particularly who are international, you know, and they try to research, if they're a master's student, they're trying to research something back home, and it, you know, it just drags out their degree if they have something local that they could be working on. Anyway, I was just wondering if the City of Gainesville has given any thought to that partnership with the university.
So we actually have made use of that certainly in the past, and tried to, on an ongoing basis, maintain those relationships. Many of our planners have master's degrees from the University of Florida, from that college. We actually have a former city commissioner who teaches in that college. And there's tremendous value in making those links. I will say we always have to be careful in over-promising that. There's a great opportunity for the University of Florida to use the city of Gainesville as kind of a laboratory in many ways, but it's not just a laboratory. We can't get it wrong. So there are many opportunities to work together, but folks in the community very often come to us and say, well, why don't you just let UF work on this? We wouldn't have to pay for it that way. Because we have a responsibility to provide folks who already have a degree at it. But there are definitely research opportunities and actual real world opportunities to be able to work together, and we try to take those opportunities when possible. Commissioner Eastman, and then let's try to move on.
And yeah, I just wanted to say, I did meet prior to the summer with a number of the folks at the architecture school, a lot of the deans and professors that were in that area. It was just prior to the summer. I think there's a lot of exciting opportunities. We used to have a really great relationship with something called the Florida Community Design Center that would make that connection. That's now defunct, or I don't think it's still active any longer. And so I'm really hopeful that we can get that, that moving back forward, and that we can start using a lot of the great folks that we have over here at the University of Florida. I mean, I think one of the real benefits of us as City of Gainesville being where we are is that we do have the greatest university in the state of Florida, the land-grant university. And so the more that we can make use of that brain power, and the more that you can use all of the things that we're doing here at the city of Gainesville to get out into the world, to learn what's best, and then maybe even come work for the city of Gainesville at the end of it. Be able to pick up some of those. What's that?
29 advisory boards and committees.
Oh yes, we have 29 advisory boards and committees. A lot of them have specific positions on there that are for University of Florida students. We're always looking for folks that are on there. So if you'd like to get involved, we have the vice chair for the Human Rights Board that's here, but then there's a number of different boards related to utilities, related to transportation. We have an RTS advisory board, a lot of the questions we've gotten here today. Disability beautification, you name it. So yes, I go onto our website, we're always looking for folks, and when the pandemic came, similar to RTS, we had a number of people that have fallen off of there, so we have a lot of vacancies right now, and we'd love to have you guys be a part of that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And we also have an opportunity that is a more formal, paid opportunity, compensated at some level. The Research Fellows Program to work at City Hall for undergrads. We do that, we operate that through the Bob Graham Center, and I would strongly encourage you to check into that if you haven't heard about it before. Go to the Graham Center. Go to the Graham Center anyway. They're pretty amazing. There's lots of really good stuff there. But ask about that Fellows Program at City Hall. We really enjoy that program, and we really do put the folks who are in it to work. They do policy research for the City Commission that ends up becoming a part of how we make ordinances. So it is extremely functional and something that I value greatly. We have more things we need to hit this evening, so let's move on through the agenda here. I think our next thing on our agenda is, because there's no action to be taken, I don't think, on this. The next item up would be housing and sustainability. That is always a topic at the City Commission, particularly housing, as it is at every local government across the nation and probably the Western world right now. Every local government has to talk a lot about housing because we are undersupplied, frankly. Not only in Gainesville, but again, across most of America. Undersupply, of course, leads to higher prices. We might be nearing good supply for specific student housing, but it's really hard to tell. You don't know until you're kind of oversupplied. The City of Gainesville doesn't build that. We create a situation through land use and zoning where there are degrees of possibility for the market to meet needs. We also support the Gainesville Housing Authority, and we just this past summer allocated more than $7 million of our allocation of American Rescue Plan funding to build low-income housing in our community. That will result in a little over 200 units of low-income housing being built. We're always looking for ways to expand that and make that more possible. But again, we generally do not build it as a city. We try to create circumstances either through some funding or through land use and zoning where the market wants to meet that need. We're always open to conversation about it, and there is not a single City Commission meeting that happens where we don't have some kind of land use and zoning issue up there. Do y'all want to speak to that at all, or should
I
we
think
go
they have some notes actually on their agenda related to some of the efforts that we have there.
Very good. Okay. So definitely take a look at some of the things that we are doing. We love to talk about housing. We rebuilt our housing and community development program over the last couple of years under Manager Curry's leadership, and it really is becoming something to be very proud of. A thing that I'm super proud of that we found out about last Friday was the City of Gainesville and the Gainesville Housing Authority received one of 14 communities nationwide that received a Neighborhood Choices Planning Grant. Really exciting. It's a $500,000 grant, not a huge amount of money, but it's a precursor to a Neighborhood Choices neighborhood implementation grant, which can be in the $30 to $60 million area, with the intent of revitalizing housing in East Gainesville, and not just housing, but revitalizing those neighborhoods in a way that has not been approached in my lifetime. So we are very excited to be selected by Housing and Urban Development along with 13 other communities to receive that grant. That's a big deal. And I encourage you to Google up Choice Neighborhood Grants, Tampa, Miami-Dade, and a variety of other communities over the years that have used those to really transform their communities. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
So, I can't help but wonder about the reversal of the exclusionary zoning and how that was a major planning practice that could have been implemented and it enticed a lot of private development in towards areas that needed it so that you wouldn't have to go out and find grants for things like that. How, I guess, my question is, how was that decision made, and what helped you come to that decision as the city commission, and what influenced that?
So we have two commissioners here, a mayor and a commissioner, who voted to change that back to the way it originally was, and two commissioners who voted to keep it the way it was changed to last year. I'm happy to talk about my opinion on it. First of all, it is one of a couple of dozen things, tools in the toolbox, and I don't believe that the research indicates it really would have had much of an impact anyway. What it did was scare the bejesus out of a lot of people, a lot of homeowners across the city. We went, in my opinion, about that in a heavy-handed approach rather than a more, what I believe would have been a more appropriate approach, would have been a little more meticulous. We did not do that. And I wasn't comfortable with the way that we approached it, and I think the benefit to it would have been minimal. The research in places that have made that change and kept that change does not appear to be that it's been, wow, look, it solved our problem. It solves a little bit of the problem, but we're also doing lots of other things that solve a little bit of the problem. I think that there are several things that we can do and are working on doing to implement that piece by piece rather than as a blunt instrument approach, and I think that that's a more appropriate way to do it. I'm okay with anybody's attitude on it. I've been very comfortable having lots and lots, hours and hours and hours of discussions at City Hall and on doorsteps. Very willing to have the conversation with folks, but I'm just not convinced that that was the thing. I have two colleagues here who do not agree with me, so that's that works too. I'll give them the opportunity as well.
So how this decision was made was with really months and months and months and months of community input towards the commission, and it came down to a 4-3 vote. So it was, and that's what the original policy last year came down to, a 4-3 vote. So it's very, very, very tight, the margins, you would say. But the kind of an opposing view that I espoused during my campaign and very loudly at city commission meetings is that though this is a tool that perhaps is not huge in its magnitude of what it can do right now, next year, 2 years from now, most of what we experience in housing also did not happen in 1 year or 2 years. Things that happened 15, 60, 70 years ago is we feel those effects now. And I firmly still will the hill I will die on is that exclusionary zoning is based in racism, it is based in classism. If anyone wants to go back and look at the where zoning really started in the Supreme Court cases, why zoning at all exists. We did not, the earth did not form with zoning. The United States did not form with zoning. The state of Florida did not write a constitution with zoning. Zoning in the United States is about 100 years old. And the reason why it happened is because the Supreme Court finally said, well, you really can't discriminate against people based on race, where they live. And immediately people tried to figure out, how can we though? And the first zoning was literally, black people can't live here, or only white people can live here. And when that got overturned, they said, well, how can we continue to just like poke around? And I will die on the hill that exclusionary zoning is racist and classist, and so much of what we experience is because of that. Now, but because it didn't happen in 2 years, how we unwind 50, 60, 70 years of policy. And just to be clear, the city of Gainesville really didn't have zoning until 1958. Commissioner Eastman is most up to date on that. So how this happened was, we're talking about unwinding 60 and 70 years worth of policy. And across the country, people are trying to have this conversation. It's very contentious because it deals with, for most Americans, their biggest asset is their home, and they've counted on it as an investment. Even though it's probably just a savings mechanism, they have counted on it potentially to return them 5, 6, 7% a year. And when they do that, that means anything that changes in their neighborhood changes their biggest asset. I wish that wasn't the case. I wish people's biggest asset was retirement savings, but that's just not the reality. So I think that's why it's become so contentious. But I think the only way we continue to move forward in other smaller proposals or this one to come back is we did have a very deep conversation in this community about who deserves to live in our community. And if we can't agree that all people deserve to live in our community, that students deserve to live in our community, that working class people deserve, that immigrants deserve, if we can't agree that workers deserve to live in all corners of our city, it's going to continue to be a very hard conversation when we get to the nitty-gritty. And I don't think as a city, at least from what I saw from voters and from residents communicating with us, I don't think we're there yet. I don't think people agree, frankly, that students should live in the city. If they could, I think a lot of voters, if we could put you outside of the city and you just come in on an RTS bus, I think that's what they would prefer. But you have a right to be here. Everyone has a right to be here because this is America, damn it. So anyways, but that's something we're gonna have to get to and really understand that, and really value that as we go through and pick other policies that will allow more housing to be built in more different places. But the mayor is not wrong. Every single commission meeting, in the end, we talk about housing because zoning and land use is about housing, about giving people permission to build but to roughly give them permission to say, by right, on this piece of land, you can build up to X in this format and use it for this. We control that. So it's a big power, and that's why we fight about it, because it's a very big power.
Yes, thank you. This is, our city commission generally, I think, tends to agree on those things. I mean, we stayed fairly strong. We've had a lot of legislative attacks this past time. The governor is going to be taking over large portions of our city. We've all stood together on that, stood together on trying to fund affordable housing, on homelessness issues. This is the one thing that has brought the most amount of divisiveness within the city commission, so I'm glad that you brought it up for this meeting here today. I also voted no on it. I agree with a lot of what Commissioner Willett said. I will say that in 1958, when we passed exclusionary zoning, it was about 6 months from the first African American to set foot in the University of Florida. It was all very tied together with race issues and a lot of the things that were happening with integration and with public housing that was coming into the city of Gainesville at that time. Now there's still racial elements to it, but a lot of this I think comes down to just what kind of a city do you want to have. And there are people that believe that see Gainesville as the place where you can afford to come and live, where if you're somebody who doesn't quite fit in other places, that you can be in this kind of odd little college town that's different than the Orlandos or the Miamis or Palacas or wherever you happen to be. That it's a place that isn't going to micromanage. It's not an HOA kind of a community that's going to micromanage how large your lot's going to be, what you can do on your private property. It's a place that can be for everyone. I think that's why we feel very passionate. In the same way that some of my colleagues feel very passionately that this is a place where they have invested, where they want this to be a place where they can have families, and they see these large single-family homes with their very large lawns and their perfectly manicured bushes as the kind of family home that they want to invest in. And so it becomes a very big, can be very intense conversation. Right now we know where we are. We are in a 4-3 vote. 3 people want to see changes. I'd say I think all of us want, I'd like to hope some of my colleagues are open to other changes. I'm trying to find solutions I brought forward a proposal to try to at least shrink the lot size. Right now we mandate over 1/4 of an acre, which is 50% larger than the average home in the United States for new housing, just to try to say to legalize the ability to build smaller starter homes in the city of Gainesville We have done some good things. I mean, we have eliminated parking minimums. It used to be about 2 years ago, if you were gonna build an apartment, you had to have a large amount of parking that would be in there. Now it's more flexible, so now you have less space that you have to have cars in there. You're gonna have more space where people can actually have a place to live. And it had enormous impacts beyond just the parking and how you designed it. So we are moving forward on some things, hopefully move forward on some other stuff, but I think, as the mayor said, and Commissioner Willett said, we're gonna have to be a little more piecemeal about it, have these longer conversations. I think we hope to we were the first in the southeast to pass this very big elimination of exclusionary zoning, and I just don't think a lot in our community were ready for it at that moment. Hopefully they'll be ready for something, because people need homes. Housing is a human right. Our community has always been a place that is affordable, and if it's not that way in the future, we're gonna lose the soul of what we love about Gainesville, so we can hopefully find some solution.
Thank you all. I would add that one of the reasons that these are difficult conversations is that land use and zoning is really complex and complicated. It's not something that you can read a newspaper article about and show up at a commission meeting and be an expert. That's not how it works. There's a reason that people get master's degrees and PhDs in planning and zoning issues. It really is complex. When you make a change to a zoning district, that has wide-reaching implications way beyond just how many people can live on any given piece of property. So there's a lot to it. It does get into race and class in a big way, and not always in the way that you think it will. I would encourage folks to go back and look at, watch hours and hours of the discussions that we had over the last year, specifically around these. I'll also say that we just recently had, I think it was a 4-3 vote about 2 weeks ago, to change one of our residential zoning categories to be more, maybe a little bit more opportunistic to allow the smaller homes to be built and to take advantage of smaller lot sizes. There's more that we're going to do. This is crazy complex, but I encourage you to study it and watch it and learn about it, because it's going to be something that every community in America is going to talk about for the next 10, 15, 20 years. This is the thing that local politics is going to be about, and honestly probably always has been about. So, who else on this? Yes.
Yeah, so a couple comments. I do think, one, I'm glad you mentioned that there does seem to maybe be like a lack of like student input on this issue. I get the sense that a lot of students feel like, well, once they graduate or finish their schooling here at UF, maybe Gainesville isn't the place for them and they migrate out. I would think the city would like to retain more students, and that obviously comes with involving us more in that stakeholder engagement. I'm curious, you talked about of course looking at research to come to this decision. I'm curious what that research was. I'm sure some of that is publicly available. I do think back to the District 3 Commissioner's comment about how zoning is really a long-term process, and to my understanding, the vast majority of communities in America have had some form of single-use zoning for decades. So I would struggle to imagine that there are a lot of case studies out there of communities who have never had single-family zoning where you can actually observe that long-term change. And I think that's something that needs to be looked at, is what that long-term impact is going to be. I'm curious what kind of harms we're seeing in excluding that single-family zoning. When you mentioned that, there was an opportunity for like a small amount of change from it, that it wouldn't necessarily solve the entire problem. I think, great, like there is change being made, and it's not necessarily at a radical rate that a lot of residents here would fear. So my question would be, what kind of case studies were being looked at that kind of led you guys to those conclusions, and also what actually is the alternatives being discussed here about these piecemealing strategies?
So I can't begin to answer that with the time we have tonight because it's complex. I take a look at our commission agendas and minutes, and you will find an enormous amount of backup material. A lot of it recently done by Commissioner Eastman. And our planning staff has put lots of information out there. There is lots of research. There will be more research. There are a few communities around the country who have made kind of the sweeping change that we did and then rolled back. There's Minneapolis, Berkeley, not a lot. And it will take time for real results to be produced so that there is something studyable. What's studyable now is how did they get to a point to make the change, not what impact did it have. Because of course it's not going to happen quickly. Other things that we tried in addition to the sweeping change we did last year was in 2020 we allowed, or maybe 21, I forget, we allowed 2 accessory dwelling units to be built on almost any single-family home in Gainesville, which effectively made it possible to build a triplex on just about any single-family lot in the city. Very slow uptake. There will be more of that over the years. There are things we probably should be doing, I think, to help move that along, like provide model plans and that sort of thing. But I think it was 20, maybe 21, but in the fall of 2021, we made that possible again to build accessory dwelling units. Accessory dwelling units are often called mother-in-law apartments or garage apartments, that kind of thing. If you have a house and you have room enough to do it, right now you can build an attached smaller unit home onto your property and one unattached smaller home unit onto your property. But again, the uptake rate for that has been minimal. Where you have seen lots and lots and lots of housing being built is in places where we changed the zoning years ago at this point to build very dense apartments near campus. And you're going to see more of that. That's going to continue to be there until the lending money dries up that allows those to get built. Yes.
Just a quick question, sir. So over the summer, I was talking to one of my friends. He was an international student. He came here, and I know I was reading a little bit over the summer, but I think it was the HB 1417 bill that was passed. But essentially, it allowed landowners or landlords to allow non-refundable monthly renters fee instead of a security deposit. And so this is something that kind of affected him because he paid that monthly fee out of a lot of, unexpected kind of charges to his financial situation. And so I was just wondering, specifically for international students, for people that are unfortunately not able to pay that monthly fee, are there any financial stipends or anything that's provided so that they can afford this housing?
That's not an area we generally get into. We do support low-income housing as much as we possibly can. But as far as stipends and that sort of thing, we really don't, for the most part. I think it's fair to say that the state of Florida leans toward landlord-friendly legislation. The city of Gainesville, a couple of years ago, year and a half ago, passed a renters' rights ordinance that we were real proud of, which has essentially been stripped by recent actions of the Florida legislature. I'm really sad to see that go, although we are pretty much required to repeal that ordinance, that package of ordinances. Sadly, I think it was something that was some basic consumer protections that we were able to offer that we are going to have to roll back. Our ordinances, we don't think we're specifically targeted by this legislation. There's sort of collateral damage from some other things that were being, I don't want to say attacked, but they were being outlawed in Florida. So I wish that there were more. I wish Florida were more tenant friendly, but we are simply not.
Please.
Yes.
I'd like to switch gears a little bit more towards sustainability, specifically with like flooding and like natural disasters. Basically, the state of Florida has a crisis that it refused to admit, which is rising property insurance rates, which are through the roof and continue to.
We have a lot of crises we
Yes, yes, but that directly affects us because most of us are renters, right? And landlords are gonna basically dump those insane insurance rates onto us as renters, because very few students own property in Gainesville.
Homeowners get it too.
Yeah, but so I guess the thing I really want to address is that a lot of these rates are due to the fact that actuaries have decided that Florida is no longer sustainable to insure because of these natural disasters, right? So how are we mitigating like the damages? For example, University of Florida, pretty much every time there's a major rainfall or hurricane, Marston Science Library basement floods, which is kind of unacceptable considering the fact that this is an issue that continues to occur every single year. Likewise, there's a bunch of properties throughout Gainesville, which is one of the higher elevated locations in the state, still continue to flood. And it's only going to keep biting us as insurance rates continue to get jacked up without any sign of like slowing down.
So yes, you're absolutely correct. So what we see, and I think it's documentable at this point, is increased intensity of rain events. So we have existing infrastructure, some of which is not new, many decades old, but it's pretty good. We do a pretty good job with our stormwater infrastructure in Gainesville. We try to keep up with that, but stormwater infrastructure is incredibly expensive, and as we see rain events that are more drastic, our stormwater sometimes can't keep up with it. After the Friday after the tropical storm a few weeks ago, we had a couple of downtown streets that we had to close for a little while that I had never seen closed before because of the intensity of that rain event. It just is not something that in many years of living here I have ever seen. And it's not because we didn't have storm drains. The storm drains were there. They were ready for normal rainfall. This is not normal rainfall. So how do we approach it? That's a really good question. I'm really glad that we are not a coastal community because I got to tell you, I don't know how the state of Florida is going to be able to address rising seas that are actually happening right now. A1A, if you drive A1A south from Jacksonville, it is just a different set of communities than it was not that long ago. The beachside properties are precarious at best at this point. And as those experience more trouble, not only will they be harder to insure, but they will eventually start to be abandoned. And with that abandonment goes a lot of property tax for those coastal counties. On average. Mr. Willis?
So the city and the county have a joint climate and water committee that I serve on, which also has a citizen advisory committee. So if any of you want to be on that, I'm sure they're taking applications. And one of the things, I believe the county funded it, but I could be wrong, a risk assessment going into the future of climate. And this goes everything from projected population, where it would go, urban interface with wildfire, flooding, heat, what crops will grow better in the future, in the future climate, and that risk assessment. It's long in the making, and it's just now coming to fruition, so that we can really see it, and that can help guide us in decision making, because we do have decision making in land use and zoning about where we allow things to be built, and we have to follow a lot of law and regulation to make sure that we're not depriving people of the ability to build on their land, but that we also look at our city's comprehensive plan and to see how we want the city to develop. And one of the things that goes into that is looking at that future risk. I will say that this is not what governments over the past 200 years have done. They didn't even realize they were changing the environment, or that the environment was really changing. So it is new for us. It is new. Our comp plan does envision the future, but getting climate into a comp plan and into how we do everyday business is, this is to some degree new over the past 20, 30 years, but it is something that definitely I see a commitment in Gainesville, but it is going to be a challenge. And homeowners insurance might went up 40% this year, and you're absolutely right, and I want you to say that renters absolutely get hit with property tax and renters insurance, because in the end, there's no landlord that just says, "Oh, this is covered out of the goodness of my heart." they might be good business people, but their hearts aren't what are paying the bills. It's their business. So thank you for mentioning that.
Thank you, Commissioner. I will add a little bit to that. We have had conversations recently at the City of Gainesville, and we got more of, about funding long-term for buying properties as they become available along creek sides. Now, one of the things you could do with that is make that part of the transportation and recreation system for bike paths and walking paths, but it also gives you the opportunity to not have to compensate a homeowner and help them out of a difficult situation when their home inevitably floods. We're not going to force people off their properties, but when a property becomes available, a wise decision along creeks, particularly Hogtown Creek in Gainesville, we should be looking at ways to purchase that property so it becomes part of our transportation recreation system, but primarily so it aids in our resiliency when these flood events occur. One here, and then we'll go this way. We'll reach you next.
Yeah, so I want to talk about GRU, especially when it comes to housing. We understand from as a Senate, just the state takeover, and we proposed that. I believe the resolution was forwarded to the City Commission. And a lot of my constituents strategically are concerned about this. They're concerned about the rising costs that may come for our utilities bill. I know some constituents have already noted some of those changes, and they've kind of mentioned that in passing with me. And so I'm kind of wondering what is going on, what is the plan from at least the office. I know it's complicated because there is a transition that's going on when it comes to that authority. But what is the plan to make sure that for constituents like us who, those extra dollars or cents that are added onto our utilities bill can make a difference? Like, how are we going to mitigate that and ensure that students aren't able to be taking a big hit because of that?
So I'll give you the most condensed version possible, at least for me, which is still going to be long. Any responsible utility is going to have to raise rates along with inflation. And we have done that. We were going to do that on first reading a couple weeks ago. We're going to do it likely again this Thursday. There is not a politician anywhere in the world that wants to raise utility rates. We don't like doing that, but we want to run a responsible utility. The utility we have, after the tropical storm we just mentioned that came through, 24 hours after the last tropical storm winds, there were exactly 4 GRU customers who didn't have power. That's amazing. I mean, that just doesn't happen. But we have the ability to do that because we invest in our utility. Traditionally, we've done that. October 1st, there is a new governing board. Traditionally, the City of Gainesville has been, the Gainesville City Commission has been the governing board of the utility for 100 years. That's going to change, in theory, October 1st, and the new board will be sworn in October 4th. I don't know who that board is. The governor appoints all those folks by legislative act. I don't know who they are. It hasn't been announced. I'm not even sure that it was that the advertising for those positions was formally and correctly done, but maybe that ain't my business. I don't know. That is what is happening. The City of Gainesville also has a lawsuit that will be heard this coming Friday in state court. We don't know what the results of that will be, but more than likely on October 4th, a different set of people who you all did not elect will be making all the rules for the utility, and I don't know what decisions they will make, or how you will get in touch with them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that's just the political ground that we are on. Our general manager of utilities here. Do you want to speak to anything on that, or I didn't think so.
I mean, I can, but that was good.
Okay. I mean, just that I'm happy to talk about it anytime. And any of this stuff, we are commissioners, pretty easy to find. GainesvilleFL.gov. Our addresses are on there. We're easy to find. We like to talk about this stuff very clearly. So please do hunt us down later. We want to engage with you about all of these things. And even things we don't want to engage on, we will. Over here in the back over here.
So as a graduate senator, I'm representing about 20,000 graduate students on this campus. And many of us, alongside pursuing our higher degrees, are tasked with teaching classes here at the University of Florida. And for that, we receive a stipend. The minimum stipend here at UF is $17,600, and many of us make that amount. With the average rent in Gainesville being over $1,000 for a single bed, we're trying to be fiscally responsible and spend 25 to 35% of our income on rent, but we're spending 70 to 80% of our income on rent. And the university has made it explicitly clear that it's not like we really belong on campus. They've demolished 2 of the 5 graduate housing units on this campus this year, and the website to apply for graduate housing, according to the University of Florida, was a 3-year-long wait list before those units were demolished. So as a graduate senator, what can I do? How can I advocate for affordable housing for my constituents?
That's a great question. If I were you, I would advocate, as I have done in the past, and I know Commissioner Willits is a specific part of this, for higher wages for grad students and for everybody. That's the secret. As housing has grown up really fast, wages have remained not exactly flat, but darn near. And that's a 40-year experiment in economics that I consider a failure. I have been very clear that if the University of Florida wants to have an impact on poverty and on quality of life in the Gainesville area, the best way they can do it is to pay everybody an honest living wage. That's what I would work on, because it's a whole lot easier to do than affordable housing, which is something everybody is trying to work on. And I will tell you that the less than living wages are not because they're bad people trying to make those decisions. It is because paying people a living wage has not floated to the top of the desk at Tiger Hall. When that becomes one of the top 5 issues that everybody at Tiger has to deal with when they come to work every single morning, it'll get fixed, because there are a lot of smart people who can work on it. But as long as it's not one of the things that floats to the top, it's not going to get solved.
Quick follow-up. Is there a city definition for living wage in Gainesville?
So when I first started getting involved in politics, the fight for 15 was what we were latching onto. That was 10 years ago, and $15 an hour doesn't pay the bills anymore. We cannot set a minimum wage in Gainesville. Florida statute does not allow municipalities to do that. The minimum wage in Florida will soon be $15 an hour. But again, you can't pay the bills with that. There is a really good website that MIT has with a calculator for just about every zip code in America. You can tell what an actual living wage with and without health insurance comes to. I would say it's a solid $20 an hour in Gainesville, not including healthcare. City of Gainesville was really fast several years ago to paying all our workers $15 an hour, but again, that is been outpaced at this point. It is hard to keep up with, but I don't think I know there are jobs at the University of Florida, despite the best intent, that don't pay that. So I wish that were different. I love my university. I love my alma mater. My wife works here. My daughter goes to school here. But there are things that they can do better. Yes.
I was just going to say that opened up the door for a quick plug because for those of you that are students here at UF, you don't know the Schimberg Center of Housing Studies here at UF out of the Rinkin School of Construction. We are the state's clearinghouse for housing data, for all housing data in the state of Florida. So if you want to know and understand the data in the state of Florida, not just in Alachua County, but anywhere in the state of Florida, the data clearinghouse is right here in your backyard. So if you're interested, see me.
There's also another UF resource at BEAVER, which is Bureau for Economic and Business Research, which is off campus a few blocks, but they do amazing work that many people across Florida depend on for good information. So do you have something and then?
Oh yes. To switch back the conversation to sustainability, under the Sand Bluff Solar Project, she said the City Commission has approved a large investment in clean energy to have 0 emissions by 2045. A former senator from my own caucus who just graduated, he actually was doing an initiative with putting solar panels on the Rice Union. What's the City Commission's plan looking like in regard to that?
So unfortunately, that depends. for the last many years, again, the city commission has been in charge of the utility. And we have a contract that I think continues to roll forward for a company called Regis to build a 75 megawatt, 74.9 megawatt solar farm out near Archer, which will provide GRU, on a good clear day, 74.9 megawatts of energy, which approaches about 10% of our load if it's working really well. That's awesome. It's incredible. I don't know what the new board wants. Maybe they'll continue to approach those things, but I don't have any way of knowing that. I will say this though, when we talk about inexpensive rates, eventually resiliency and renewable energy gets us there. In the short term, renewable energy is not cheap. It costs more. It's cheap to burn in stuff that comes out of the ground. Bad and wrong in the long run, but it's cheap. And it's really hard as any policymaker, which many of you are headed in that direction, I think. The intersection of the right thing to do and the inexpensive thing to do is a really tough place to be. It's easy to confuse being progressive with being inexpensive. Those aren't the same thing necessarily. We wish they were, but it doesn't always work out that way. Cheap and really good, often not the same thing. And solar is getting a lot better. Now the Origis contract that we signed, that we agreed to buy power from that solar plant cheaper than anything else that we're currently producing, or cheaper than the average, I should say. So it is getting there, but it has not been there. We, by the way, produce currently at GRU about 30% of all the energy that we use. Unfortunately, the University of Florida doesn't use that energy, so they have a Duke contract. That's another story. But 30% of the energy that GRU produces is renewable energy. The statewide average for renewable energy, anybody want to guess? 4%. 4%. So is GRU a little more expensive? Yes, we are. Are we more sustainable? You bet we are. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the history that we've been able to build in that regard. Anybody else on this? Because we're getting deep into the evening here. Okay, so that'll do it for those items. We do have a member comment item if any of you all want to follow up with any of that.
I'll be super short. Graduate students, join your union GAU. That's it. That is the negotiating power. Be sure to do that and make your dues. Anyone else who works at UF who's a Teams or OPS, I'm a 20-hour-a-week OPS worker in the Department of Otolaryngology. It used to be full-time, but when I started doing this, there's a union for those workers as well. It is not officially recognized where they can bargain, but that's United Campus Workers, and they're always looking for people to join as they push towards being ready for a real fight to have a union for the rest of the staff. Whereas professors, they have their union, graduate students, and police officers. But the average worker, 11,000 workers don't really have union representation, but they're out there, they're organizing because people deserve paid hurricane days and all kinds of things, and they deserve a real raise, not just 1 or 2 or 3%. Or in the College of Medicine, big 0 this year. That's my college. So, anyways, if you're a graduate student, join the GAU, pay your dues, and if you know anyone else who's another form of employee that you have, United Campus Workers, which is associated with Communication Workers of America, tell them to go join their union.
I just want to say very briefly, it's really, your input is critical to us as a city commission. So never underestimate the leverage that you have as it relates to providing us feedback, input. It's not just necessarily through things like my GNV. It's email to the commission. We get thousands of them. And when there's an issue that someone's passionate about, we get hundreds on every particular issue. And so your input matters. What Commissioner Eastman mentioned about the 29 boards and advisory committees, those do real work. And some of them have tremendous authority in the city of Gainesville to make decisions that don't even come before the city commission. So I'd ask you to take a look at that. And lastly, I just want to say this is your extremely knowledgeable group. You're already us in just a few years. 3 of us were just elected as new commissioners, and we learn every day. The mayor was already elected, but became a new mayor of the city of Gainesville, and we just appreciate the questions
the feedback that you had in this hearing, so thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to echo what Commissioner Book said. I don't think, I know when I was in college, I didn't fully realize how much my voice mattered. We spoke before about the University Avenue issue, and that came after 20 years of us as a city commission, probably longer than that, talking to the Florida Department of Transportation to fix that road. Nothing happened until there was a number of terrible, heartbreaking deaths that occurred there, and students and their parents started to get involved in that, reach out to the Florida Department of Transportation, reach out to their state officials and wherever their parents were and say, I want my kids to be safe when they're going to school. The University of Florida has a tremendous impact on so many of the people that make decisions within our state, and so that means you all have impact in a way that, in a lot of ways that we don't. So please reach out to your state representatives. Feel free to write letters just like you had to us to talk about the things that you're seeing within the city of Gainesville, and reach out to us, as Commissioner Book said. The questions that I heard here today have been some of the more insightful, thoughtful questions that we would hear when we were up on the dais. I know you guys probably don't see it that way, but I promise you that that you all know a lot about what is going on. You guys are paying incredible amounts of attention to this, and your voice is not really heard up there on our dais. The average age in the city of Gainesville is 26. That is the median age in the city of Gainesville. That is not the median age of the people that come and speak to us at city commission meetings.
Hey, wait a minute now.
Yeah,
You know.
hey, look, it's great to have diversity, but we need to have diversity. This is a very diverse crowd. It's a very young crowd. It really matches, what this city is. And so please feel free to reach out to us. I know any of us would be happy to sit down and talk to you about anything that matters to you all.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, city staff, for being here and spending their time to answer questions. I know some of us will stick around. I'm planning on being here until after your public comment, and then I'll be out. But please reach out to us at City Hall. Come see us at City Hall. Come be a part of what we do. I know most of you don't think this right now, but some of you, a fairly high percentage of you, will end up making Gainesville your home when you're done with school. It just happens that way. People fall in love with this town one way or another, and it happens a lot. Many folks who live here, came here as students, and just never left. Regardless, I hope that you will be engaged. I hope that you will register to vote in our town, no matter who you vote for. And I hope that you recognize that Gainesville is part of your story, and you are part of Gainesville's story, and I'm glad you're here. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor Ward and the City Commission. Give one more round of applause for